What is going on, you guys? Petplatypus here, and it's time to talk about Dragon Ball and Yu Yu Hakusho. That's right, the Dragon Ball versus Yu Yu Hakusho comparison video is upon you. You're watching it right now. It's finally real. I'm going to be pitting two of the most famous shonen battle series against each other to see which one is better, at least in my opinion. I'm going to be as objective as I can, but a lot of this is going to come down to personal preference. Whichever series you prefer, that is fantastic, but this is going to be my opinion, so let's get started. Alright, first things first, spoiler warning, because, well, I mean, really, I don't think you'd be watching this video if you cared about spoilers, because you've probably seen both series, but if you haven't seen Yu Yu Hakusho, and if you haven't seen Dragon Ball, there will be massive spoilers throughout this video, so you have been warned. Next up, let's talk about what exactly we're comparing. We are comparing the Dragon Ball manga written by Akira Toriyama to the Yu Yu Hakusho manga written by Yoshihiro Togashi. No filler, no movies, no Dragon Ball Super, no anime pacing versus this, that, none of that. Original source material versus original source material. That's the fairest way to do this. So that's what we're going to do. And we're going to be comparing them in 4 categories. The first category is characters, and by the way, I'll go more in depth on what each category entails when I get to them, but first category is characters, the next category is writing structure, the third category is fights, it is a battle shonen after all, and the fourth category is basically comparing how each series begins, comparing their middle portions, and comparing their ending portions. So we're talking about how they begin, how they are in the middle, and how they end, which has the stronger beginning, stronger middle, stronger ending. I was getting a little redundant, but I'm pretty sure you get it. So let's move back to the first category, and that is characters. Okay, so there's going to be a lot to discuss when it comes to this category, so let's just dive right in. The first thing I want to talk about is character development. Second thing is characterization. And the last thing I want to talk about is character utilization, how they're used throughout the series. In terms of characters, there's really 3 main things to talk about: their development, their characterization, and how they're used throughout the series. I thought this was going to be an easy win for Dragon Ball, but actually Yu Yu Hakusho puts up a bit of a fight, especially when it comes to how characters are used. Right off the bat, when we're talking about how characters are used, Yu Yu Hakusho has admittedly a smaller cast of characters. You have about 4 major characters. You got Yusuke, Kurama, Kuwabara, and Hiei. And aside from Kuwabara, they're all pretty well utilized throughout the run of the entire series. At least, after they're formally introduced. They all pop up in each arc for the most part. They play their part, they win their fights. They do a good job of that. And it's because it's a small cast that each character does play a big role. And yeah, Kuwabara does get shafted in the final arc, which sucks, but in the case of Dragon Ball, a lot more of the characters that were introduced early on get shafted by the time you get to the Buu Saga. Krillin does essentially nothing, Yamcha does essentially nothing. Piccolo participates by helping teach the kids the fusion dance, which is very, very important, so Piccolo gets a pass. Tien shows up very briefly, not as impressive as what he did in the Android Saga, and yeah, it's really that last arc. Both Yu Yu Hakusho and Dragon Ball are guilty of lacking in character utilization when it comes to that final arc for both series. However, Yu Yu Hakusho's characters are more important from a combat standpoint throughout the entire run of the series, whereas Dragon Ball characters, Krillin, he's more so important in terms of having the button that can turn off 18, will he do it, will he not, developing a romance for her, Yamcha brings Goku to take the heart medicine. Smaller supporting roles, but nothing really combat-wise, so they're still relevant, but I'd say Yu Yu Hakusho handled it a little bit better, partly due to the fact that the series is shorter, and because there's a smaller cast of characters, and the power gap never gets too massive, except for in the case of Yusuke towards the end, and of course Kuwabara falling behind, and they both share similar issues, but because of the smaller cast, because of the shorter runtime of Yu Yu Hakusho, I feel like it comes out on top when it comes to how it utilizes its characters. But again, that's really only talking about towards the end of its run. Dragon Ball does utilize all of its characters fairly well from the beginning all the way up until the Android Saga, as I said, so It's pretty even, but you never get the sense that any characters have become useless in Yu Yu Hakusho, whereas Dragon Ball, you sort of get that impression. It's not really true. Like I said, they do play their role in the Android Saga, but they do come across as useless in a fight. And because of that, I kind of want to give the category to Yu Yu Hakusho, even though it does sort of feel like it's closer to a tie. So yeah, I'm a little mixed on that one, but one that I'm not mixed on is character development. That's an easy win for Dragon Ball. Whether you look at a character like Piccolo, Krillin, Vegeta the king of fucking character development, Goku, Gohan, Tien, a lot of the characters in Dragon Ball, pretty much every character with the exception of like maybe Chaozu or Master Roshi, they all get very strong character development. And a lot of them are villains turned good, but it's done in a really good way. A lot of these characters have years to develop, with the exception of Tien, who develops over the course of the tournament. But he's still young, he's still learning, he's still figuring things out. Tien's development still makes sense. Piccolo has years to go from the evil Demon King to the person he is by the end of the series. Vegeta has even more years to go from what he was when he showed up in the series to what he was at the end of the series. Because Dragon Ball is a longer series, see how in the last category I said Yu Yu Hakusho being shorter was beneficial? Well, I think for character development, Dragon Ball being way longer than Yu Yu Hakusho is more beneficial, because I feel that Yu Yu Hakusho could have done more with its character development. I feel like you could have done more with Hiei and his sister. You could have done more with Kurama. Yusuke was pretty well developed throughout the run, and he had some unique character development, and you definitely could have done more with Kuwabara. Whereas Dragon Ball being longer, a lot of these characters, at a certain point, they stop developing, and it's mostly focused on their characterization, and that's because they pretty much reach full circle. Tien fully develops by, like, the Saiyan Saga, or the, actually, really the 23rd World Martial Arts Tournament, where he gets closure fighting Mercenary Tao. And then, of course, Goku gets his full round of character development. Vegeta gets his by the time you roll around to the Buu Saga. Piccolo. Krillin, too. I mean, Krillin, I just want to quickly mention, because he's like one of the most underrated characters when it comes to character development. No one ever brings him up. Which is weird to me, because he starts off as this cocky little shit who doesn't like Goku, but then they become friends and rivals, and, you know, he becomes a lot more humble over the years. And, Krillin's a pretty well-developed character. I don't know, people are kind of sleep on Krillin's development, but either way, I definitely think development goes to Dragon Ball. But let's not stop with character development just yet. Let's compare the two main characters, Goku and Yusuke. Yusuke's character arc can sort of be categorized, at least early on in the series, as the street punk who doesn't care about anything, but still has a bit of a heart, learning to care about stuff, to give a shit about his life, and get his life together, and care more about the people around him. And it's something you've seen before, but it's handled really well. And from there, it moves on to where's Yusuke's place in the world. Sort of the Superman story, kind of, in a way, but not quite. It's just kind of like, well, he's so powerful now, he's S-class. What does he do? Does he go to Demon World? Does he belong there? Does he belong in the human world? You know, if he was to turn evil, no one in the human world could really stop him, so they play around with that idea, at least early on in the Three Kings arc. They don't explore it too much, but either way, Yusuke does go through a lot of good character development. But Goku, see, you see how with Yusuke I categorized it as like, oh yeah, he's a street punk, and, you know, he learns to be a better person and everything. You've seen that before. With Goku, his development is so wildly different from any other shonen main character, so unique. Small child, really never interacted with anybody but his grandpa, can't even tell the difference between a male or a female, doesn't know what a car is, thinks it's some kind of monster. And he grows, and he learns, and he adapts to the world around him, and he grows up all the way to the point where he has a son, and he has to learn to be a father, but balance being a father with being a Saiyan, which makes him not a bad father. I don't think Goku's a bad father, contrary to popular belief, but he's not amazing at it. He's not, you know, a role model father or anything. And it's interesting to see him learn that his son is not just like him, and he goes through a lot of development. He goes through quite a bit, and it's very, very, very unique and very original for a main character. Especially considering he's like the original shonen main character that a lot of them are based on, including like Monkey D. Luffy from One Piece, Naruto, Natsu, Dragneel from Fairy Tail. Of course, I'd say Natsu Dragneel from Fairy Tail is sort of a ripoff of Luffy, but Luffy was clearly inspired by Goku, so it all comes full circle. And yeah, Goku just goes through a ton of character development. Again, it comes back to the amount of years these characters spend developing as opposed to Yu Yu Hakusho. Not bashing Yu Yu Hakusho. When I say that the Dragon Ball characters are more well developed and they had more time to develop, that doesn't mean I'm saying Yu Yu Hakusho's character development was rushed. Yu Yu Hakusho's character development is perfectly serviceable, it's perfectly fine. I like the characterization we get. Hiei is a ripoff of Vegeta, in my opinion. He is, for the most part, until the Three Kings arc where we get his backstory of when he was cast out, and getting the Jigan Eye and everything with the sister, that's when he starts to become more of his own character. For a while, though, he was just a Vegeta ripoff, and Vegeta was clearly done way, way better than Hiei. So, yeah, I gotta give the category to Dragon Ball. Okay, so Dragon Ball gets character development, and Yu Yu Hakusho just barely, kind of a tie, a little bit mixed on it, but Yu Yu Hakusho just barely gets character utilization. So let's break the tie. What about characterization? How well fleshed out are the characters? Do they feel three-dimensional? Do they feel real? Do they feel fleshed out? In both series, the answer is yes. I want to lean more towards giving this point to Dragon Ball because of how many characters are well fleshed out, just how well fleshed out they are. But a lot of that comes into play when you're looking at Dragon Ball Super and how much slice-of-life stuff you have with the characters. And we're not talking about Dragon Ball Super, we're talking about the original manga. And of course, there's still great characterization. They're still really well fleshed out characters. They have great interactions with each other, as well as the Yu Yu Hakusho characters. Yusuke and Kuwabara work really well off of each other as really close friends that don't like to show it all the time, and they like to give each other shit and be rivals and everything, and it really works, and it works with the other characters as well. They all interact with each other and have really good chemistry, and that's one of Yu Yu Hakusho's strengths, is the character chemistry. But the same can be said for Dragon Ball. And again, I want to give the edge to Dragon Ball because of things like Dragon Ball Super, but I can't count Dragon Ball Super, and then there's the fact that I eat, sleep, and breathe Dragon Ball practically. I mean, I don't, but I feel like I do because I know so much about Dragon Ball on a ridiculous level, and Yu Yu Hakusho I've only read and watched once, so it's hard for me to remember specific memorable moments between characters, but both series do have really well done characterization, really well done fleshing out of the characters. The way I see it is if a character is going to be fleshed out and well developed and everything, you sort of have to compare them to like a real life person, you know what I mean? Like, are they a three-dimensional character? Do they feel real? Could you pull them from the world they live in, put them in another situation and think, oh yeah, that character would totally do this or that or whatever? Because you sort of think about it like, okay, well, let's look at, like, think about your best friend or think about a close friend or whatever. Think about what you know about them. And then you kind of think to yourself, oh, hey, I'll surprise him with this because he'd like that, or whatever. If you can compare that to a fictional character that's that well realized and that well developed, like Goku, like Yusuke, like a Vegeta or whatever, I think you have the signs of a really fleshed out character where you can take them and put them in any situation, and they don't even always have to be the most well fleshed out. They can just have really strong personality. But that still adds to characterization. Like the Looney Tunes aren't well fleshed out characters, but the Looney Tunes are so versatile and so well characterized and have so much personality that you can put the Looney Tunes in almost any situation and they're almost guaranteed to be funny. A lot of that falls on the writing as well, I suppose, because there's definitely times where they aren't funny, but yeah, being a well characterized character does not always mean fully fleshed out, fully three-dimensional, because the Looney Tunes aren't. But it really matters if you have a lot of personality, and both casts do. So it was a tie, and it kind of still feels like a tie, but I think I'm going to give the edge to Dragon Ball, and it's because, at least early on in the series, we got to see lots of different groups interact with each other. In the beginning of the series, it was Goku interacting with Bulma, and Yamcha, and Oolong. And as the series went on, it was Goku, and Krillin, and Launch, and Master Roshi, and then we continue forward, and you have like Goku and Bulma, and oh hey, now we get to see Bulma and Krillin interact with each other, and there's a lot of characters, and they sort of trade out spots. By the end of the series, when you have the final, not the end of the series, excuse me, the end of the Dragon Ball portion of the series, quote unquote, even though it's all one manga, the squad is basically Goku, Krillin, Tien, and Yamcha, because they're the ones participating in the tournament. So it's really cool to see these characters like mix and match around and interact with each other. Again, a strength of Dragon Ball is having a ton of characters to interact with, whereas Yu Yu Hakusho keeps it kind of small. I mean, we do have side characters like Koenma and Genkai and Keiko and Botan, but still, I feel like when it comes to like main characters, there's more going on in Dragon Ball. it's a minor thing. It's a minor thing seeing other characters interact with other characters, but it's really the only way I can think to break this tie, because I can see Yusuke in another setting besides Yu Yu Hakusho fleshed out and having a really cool personality, and I get what he would do if he wasn't fighting monsters all the time. You know, he's not 100% tied down to the plot, you know what I mean? That's a good way to say it, actually. When the characters aren't so tied to the plot that they can exist on their own. Which is essentially what I said before, but I guess I'm just kind of summarizing it or saying it more simplistically. That's a sign of a really well-developed character, a sign of a really well-fleshed-out character, and that's essentially both Dragon Ball and Yu Yu Hakusho. But, again, I'm going to give the slight edge to Dragon Ball. I hope I explained myself well enough. So, overall, the character category goes to Dragon Ball. But you'll have to find out next time on Dragon Ball Z, because I did not expect this video to already be this long. I don't want this video to be ridiculous in length, so I'm just going to split it up into parts. Sorry if that's inconvenient, but I think this is a satisfying length for this part of the video. So next time we'll be covering the writing structure and fighting, and you know, if I can fit the other one in there, I'll fit it in there. I have to see how much editing I gotta do, but yeah, it's recorded and everything. I just don't want the whole video to be insanely long. So for now, I will talk to you guys later, but the next part will be coming out real soon. So thanks for watching this video. Tell me what you guys thought in the comment section below. Follow me on Instagram, add me on PSN, petplatypus on both. Give this video a thumbs up and share it on social media. Both those would help me out a lot. Subscribe if you haven't already, if you like what you've seen here, and click that little bell to get notifications of when my videos go up. I want to thank you guys one more time for watching this video, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.